Hello, and welcome to. Well, you can probably tell what we're doing in this video. Anyway, welcome to let's have a look at perhaps DLC content that you may or may not have, obviously, but this is more or less dedicated to people that are buying stuff perhaps with Christmas money that they have got for TSW, and we're looking at a lot of content, new and old. We will be technically. We're not moving anywhere, I'm just staying in the 86, but on West Coast Mainline over Shap. And this is going to be my personal own list. Your list might vary, as it were. Clear my throat so I can actually speak. We're going to go through each three sort of areas, so Europe, Britain and America. I am going to start with Britain, then we'll go America or Europe, I don't, as it were. So, stick around, don't forget to like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below what you could say into this as well. And in the meantime, I'm going to attempt to drive an 86 up the Shap and make sure I stop at Lancaster. And I'm going to look at some of the older routes as well, so obviously pre-TSW5, say, routes as well. But obviously, all of these are compatible content. And once you own them, you keep them. I've got a frog in my throat. Annoyingly. I'm not going to restart this. Anyway, so sorry if you had headphones on. So, I'm going to go through the list which they've got here and pick out content. This is gameplay, locos and routes. So the whole shebang. And I will do a pro and con for each of them as well. And I'm not going to be biased to and be against third parties or Dovetail. This will be probably a good mix of third and first party Dovetail releases. I will also say I'm not an ambassador and I don't work for Dovetail. So I'm going through the list as it were. So I'm actually going to start with one that will at least probably appreciate some people, if you haven't got it anyway, which is the Birmingham Cross City. But I will highly recommend, if you have it, to pick up the obviously the 170 pack in the same time, only because that goes quite well together and it gives it a much more better timetable. So yeah, I hope I don't miss a neutral shot. So obviously going down the list, I'm going to miss out one that route there definitely, but I will go straight down to say obviously stuff like Midland Main Line. Midland Main Line, you get the HST and the 158. And Skyhook have constantly made sure it's up to date, to be honest. They haven't added the TSW6 features into it yet, so announcements and faults. But it is something that is actually quite decent, like, to be honest. It's actually quite a stable route. The route is in a shape of a Y, if you are curious, technically, as well. So obviously deliveries do randomly show up on the 158. I have no idea about the HST, but I don't have a HST deliveries installed, so they're on that one. I will now go straight to, say, the RHTT pack. Yes, it's another 66. But if you're curious, the railhead treatment train, it will have a layer on most routes now. effectively, and originally it was just on Southeastern High Speed, and you will only see it around this time of year, so October, November, December, January, February sort of time frame. So I believe they've set it up to do de-icing as well. Trains, even though it does nothing to the game, it's just a gameplay pack. And I will then also move on to the operations class 37, only because you technically do also get a free livery for the 375 bundled into the pack as well, which is the Southeastern white livery, and that will randomly show up. I'm just going to say Great Western Express because, and I'm not doing any pros and cons, but never mind. Great Western Express, that is due a remaster that may or may not have come out by the time you'll see this. At its current state, it is one of the oldest TSW bits of content in the game that is available, as it were, properly available. Because technically Sandpatch, neutral section inbound, Sandpatch grade is the oldest route in the game. But Sandpatch grade that we have now is actually is actually a Train World 2 era release route. Technically for us on console it is anyway. So, and it is up to TSW2 standards. It was up to. They have since done a lot of updates to it. I'm going to say, ultimately now moving on to Spirit of Steam. Not Spirit of Steam, I mean Peak Forest. Just to pull someone's leg. Neutral section. Of course that's going to blow the motor. Being that. Anyway. And obviously Peak Forest you get the Jubilee and 8F, but you also get the 4F in it as well. It is the best steam mode route in the game, and still the most recent steam route in the game, despite it's been around since pretty much ages by this point. And it's a shame that it's still the most recent steam route in the game. Come on, Dovetail. Or third parties for that matter. I'm going to have a slight bit of bias to this one, but I will say Island Line. Only because it's my local side of things, but the Island Line with the 484. So, yeah. Then moving on to Northern Trans Pennine, which is an old route by this point, but it is still a decent route. London Brighton, I will also state, because it's ultimately an end-to-end route, so it's a properly end-to-end route. Not many TSW routes can have that as a saying. And I will say the 31 and Tees Valley, the reason why, and the Class 20, they all go to onto Tees Valley. They are all quite good quality actually. And at the same time, the 101 you do get the 3-car and the 2-car version, and at the same time you do get, obviously deliveries are available on the Class 20, and that is actually quite a decent model. It's a route that does desperately need a remaster though. I will now straight away go quite far down the list, and I am going to mention West Coast Main Line South, but you've probably got that route if you picked up it on TSW5. And I will mention obviously West Coast Main Line over Shap and the 86 while I'm at it, because we're in it. So, moving on to the German ones. This might be an intriguing one because I'm not German, obviously. German/European. I wouldn't say that one or those two really that much. But I will say the G6 diesel shunter is actually quite a decent route add-on nowadays. It does go on to quite a few different routes. Lincoln Strucker, or Left Rhine, which is an old route. It's set in the 90s, and I think then you get the 110 and also the BR 103 with quite decent sounds onto it. To be honest, it can be a pain in the butt to drive, but it is a decent train. Brenham to Braunstracker, Leipzig to Rosenheim will now come out onto the list. Once again, it's actually a decent route. You get a quite decent journey. You get the BR 111. I will state the Expert 101 will have a thing with the new timetable on the route as well, if you have that back. The 218 is also a decent route. Route's ignored. Once again, it's a route that does need an overhaul. I won't bother with Navaka to Lesden because you technically get that route. I will say Konarken and the new journeys a pack for the 425. It is a decent route, one of my favourites, and it's got 3 timetables for you to pick from if you have new journeys. It's had a full-on redone timetable, which has given it a flipping amount of timetables. I've seen it on my channel probably. All 3 timetables for that matter have been on my channel. Semmeringbahn, Tarandaram. I will say both routes because they're both quite decent routes. And I will actually mention Main Spessartbahn as well as actually quite a decent route. It's got a hill which is now it's actually now technically a historical route because they've actually since the releases had a pretty big overhaul done to it. Hello freight train sat on the side. Done to it since its actual release, and I mean a proper overhaul in real life. So on to the American side of things. Obviously routes have probably released while this is before this has come out and so forth. Double yellow. Straight away I will say Long Island Commuter. Yes, there is a con on this route though. However, if you don't like the American safety systems, you're in a bit of a bad end because they're on by default. I pressed you and you didn't activate, you stupid thing. I will then move on to a Northeast Corridor, New York to Trenton. And this route is actually probably going to turn a few heads because it's not everyone's favourite route because of how bad the frame rates can be on the route. But I will state this, but if you run it a couple of times it actually does get better. I will say the Long Island M3 as well. To add on to Long Island Commuter, it does lay on that route and does have services, and it doesn't have its safety systems on by default. And I will admit I am skimping over a lot of the American freight style of things. I will also say MBTA commuter, which is Boston, Framingham and Worcester. And finally onto the Amtrak Acela as well, which lays on to the Boston, Worcester and also New York, Trenton. I have surprisingly done this in perfect timing to come into Lancaster. It's lucky that signal is yellow. but red ahead. Anyway. Oh, we got 87. So, I'm going to temporarily just turn into Train Spotter Taluga and all of that lot in probably another video. So, don't forget to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to obviously subscribe as well. Comment your own opinions, as it were, down below on what perhaps is some decent routes, and I've probably baked a bit too early and too hard. Go on, brakes, release. But at least I've not thrown them into emergency brakes like I have done once. And couldn't get moving again. Anyway, I'll get into Lancaster and the video will end once we hit Lancaster. And stop. For that matter. We're going down a hill as well. Only and not. Hello, 101, that's parked up. Go to Morecambe. Anyway, so once again, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. So don't forget the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ultimately comment down below your what routes you'd perhaps recommend to people. So I would say if you've watched the video fully and you don't know still what you want to do, perhaps you want other people's opinions, look down in the comments down below. Hopefully there might be some in that list. I will see you in the next one. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and have an awesome day. Goodbye.